Welcome, welcome, everybody. I am so excited for us to start this wonderful series on Black Meditations with Dr. Caesar. We have Roots in New Iberia, Black men's
Welcome,
wellness
everybody. I am
and mental
so
health.
excited for us to start this wonderful series.
And so, yeah, this is very, very much so excited. Sorry about that. I had a little background, but we're going to continue. But yeah, so again, this is our new series called Black Men's Wellness, Mental Health, and Self-Care. Black Men's Wellness, Mental Health, and Self-Care. And if you all just kind of give me a moment to just share it on the Black Meditations page, because right now it's going live on my personal page. So just give me one moment to share it on Black Meditations, and I will come back to introduce the beautiful team, starting with Miss Tamara Rushing, and then our special guest, Mr. Carl Cooper. All right, we're back. So thank you so much for allowing me to quickly do that. Facebook changed it up a little bit and I wasn't ready, but now we are back and we're ready to start. So the first thing I always like to do is I like to honor the beautiful people who are helping me put this series together. So the first person I would like to introduce is Miss Tamara Rushing. Tamara Rushing is a mother, holistic healer, and financial coach. She's an expert at balancing holistic and traditional medicine to fight against breast cancer with years of experience. She credits positive thinking and natural remedies to the teaching of Dr. Sebi Louise Hayes, just to name a few. She believes that resiliency and steadfastness within her healing process has provided her to be the person that she is today. Ms. Rushing has spoken to many women and community members concerning holistic practices, relationships, and financial fortitude. In addition, she was featured on Wanda Williams' Internet Cafe show discussing the divine integrated approach to healing cancer. So can we just please welcome Miss Tamara Rushing?
Thank you so much, Dr. Caesar. It's always a pleasure being here with you. And I am just so looking forward to this. I'm always, as a mother of two male children, Black male children, I'm always looking forward to positive male role models. And so I'm so looking forward to the speakers on the panel and any other brothers that can give feedback, because we need that. I would love to see and support, our Black men, brothers, uncles, cousins, and taking their rightful place in the head of our family, because that's a lot to do with fixing some of the problems that we have in our community now. I think that love is really going to help. And so as a Black woman, I want to support in every way I can. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Russian. And I just want to, again, just give my gratitude because you have been with me through this particular process. And this particular series was definitely one of your things that you were definitely advocating. So here we are able to have these beautiful discussions with these wonderful Black men. So now I would like to move forward, and I would like to introduce our guest for today. Yay! Our guest for today is Mr. Carl Cooper Jr., and I'm just going to read his bio. It does not encapsulate everything, but it gives you just a little bit of who he is. So, Mr. Carl Cooper is an entrepreneur, community leader, master gardener, Black studies scholar, and spiritual teacher. He is the board president of Envision the Berry, a community-based nonprofit in New Iberia, Louisiana. Carl has a passion for entrepreneurship, wellness, community gardening, and African studies. After nearly 7 years in the oil field, he was led to become a full-time entrepreneur, creating his very first business, hair, beauty, and fashion. As time progressed, he became more involved in community affairs and Black consciousness. He soon left the oil industry to focus on uplifting the Black community. In his spare time, he enjoys reading Black history books, listening to Dr. Amos Wilson, and vibing with Little Boosie. So I would like for you all to welcome Mr. Carl Cooper.
Greetings, greetings.
So, as you know, that this particular series is entitled Black Men's Wellness, Mental Health, and Self-Care. And this particular episode, part one, is called Roots in New Iberia, where you are and where you are making a major change in the community. Before we go into some of the more, I guess, personal questions, we always like to ask first, what is self-care? In the instance of the topic being about Black men and wellness, we would love for you to start off by just giving us your perspective of what is self-care, particularly as a Black man.
Well, first and foremost, self-care is a personal thing. It's something that one should know to connect with their true identity, to their state of mind, to their well-being physically, mentally, spiritually, and know where one's heart is, ultimately being conscious of who you are, knowing how to improve in ways that you need to improve, knowing what to do to improve yourself, the healing that has to take place, being that we were born in an abnormal environment from the start, that right there, it plagues us over time. We deal with different traumas. We're in denial a lot of times. So being able to identify with your environment, with yourself, with your mentality, and having principles that you live and abide by, would all be inclusive of self-care. Also, what you eat, what you put into your temple, what you think about, what you talk about. So it's not a one word answer, but it's a many rituals within self-care. But it starts with consciousness, the state of mind of knowing who you are.
Thank you so much. I really love that particular definition, because you said that self-care is all inclusive. I really enjoyed how you said self-care is what you eat, right? It's what you eat, it's what you read, it's your environment. It's a totality of things. And so thank you for that. Tamara, did you want to say anything about that?
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, I'm so excited to hear from the brother. If we have another brother on the line, women, we're often very in tune with self-care. I just would shortly say it goes deeper than just getting your nails done and your hair done. It is inner and it is internal and external caretaking of yourself.
Right.
Thank you so much. And just Mr. Hampton, did you want to say anything about it yourself?
Sure, I could touch on a little something. The brother, he pretty much covered it, you know, briefly. I would add, being a practitioner of Ifa and Orisha, we're big on developing Iwa Puele or Iwa Lese, which is kind of translate into English as good character. You know, most religions or spiritual paths uh, usually have a doctrine that talks about that, but you know, a lot of times the practitioners uh, don't always practice it or live up to it as they should. So we kind of big on that in terms of practicing Iwa Kwele. I won't go real deep into that. Why? Because it has to do with while you're here on earth now, as well as, well, like I said, most religions, in terms of how you're going to be looked upon by the ancestors or the spiritual entities once you make your transition from here. You see, so it's important, not just while you're here on earth, but when you transition into the spiritual realm. I like the way that both of them spoke already, Tamara and the brother Carl, about eating. And Tamara mentioned, or you mentioned part of her resume is dealing with Dr. Sebi, because Dr. Sebi, to me, in my opinion, really came and as they say, took it up a notch. You know, a lot of us are vegetarians, vegan. Well, everybody talking about vegan nowadays, you know. But you know, and I mean, he really put it in a way that, like I say, took it up a notch, because a lot of people talking about being vegetarian and vegan, and most of the stuff that they're eating is just as bad or even worse than eating meat. Sugar, for instance, you know.
Absolutely,
Dealing with
absolutely.
sugar.
And yeah, I really appreciate your feedback. And we definitely know about those physical components, but it does translate over to the mental health. And we have had over the years some of the, and that's the least talked about with male health, is your emotional wellness, your mental health. And so I wanted to start out with a question for you, Carl. And the question was reverting. I find that when you refer to pop culture, it kind of goes across the lines of generations. And so I'm of a certain generation. I remember the movie South Central. I hope our audience remember it too. And it really deals a lot with the prison, like the prison industrial complex, like what it does to the family, how the sister was raising the young brother while his father was in prison, and then the young brother was into that culture where you say for the woman you're down for the guy, but for the guy it's like he's being down for like the streets and like the bad boys or the alpha males in the community leading him the wrong way. So the main character, Bobby G, or OG Bobby G, I would like to hear your feedback first, Carl, on what your perception was of how going to prison and what happened with his wife, his lady, and his son, and the brother that was to be mentoring him had an effect on his mental health through what you observed in the movie.
Right. Well, what I observed, the OG Bobby, he initially started off with his family, with his woman, with his child, trying to pursue a lifestyle in an environment that was real rough and plagued with violence, plagued with drugs, gambling, alcohol. So with a brother living in those type of conditions, considering the fact that a majority of the men around him are associated with gangs and violence and drugs, that was his one way of providing at that time, which initially led him into a situation of going to prison, being away from his lady and his child. And ultimately after that, the woman, she gets discouraged. She's sprung out on drugs and alcohol. The child is left unattended, from an early age, experiencing trauma, experiencing not being loved, not being cared about. And the examples that he had in front of him were were not the best. The conditions for his mother and father were also not the best. It wasn't like they were living happy lives and just neglected them, because they were all pretty much caught up in a generation where drugs plagued the community, violence, when a black man, when he's not working and being constructive and really providing for his family, he's already going through turmoil and going through, different hardships, and sending them to prison, now he's in prison, no child, no woman. The child goes astray. The OGs and the people you had around you, a lot of those people were led astray too. Y'all were just constituents, you ran in the same clique, in the same crew. So I see, white supremacy in it too, in the core of it, because, where did the drugs and alcohol, where did that come from initially? What did integration do? Some of these systems that were erected during those times helped, enslave our people and put our people in positions to be plagued with poverty and violence. So, with the young brother, being adopted pretty much by his dad's friend, another OG, a lot of times, if a man is not really living in his higher purpose and serving his community righteously, lots of times, he's into activities that's pulling him down. So it's common for him to pass on the same mentality to the next generation when he's, built himself up to be an individual who lives and strives off of those type of activities. And it's unfortunate that, black men, have to go through that, but that has plagued us, so I like the fact that, Bobby, he went to prison, he held it down, he changed his lifestyle, he came out, with a different mentality. He had another brother, another man in there who really took time with him to impact his life, to touch him in a way to, help him humble his own spirit so he can start thinking straight. He can start thinking for the future. He can put his foot down and be the man that he needs to be for himself, for his son, and for the community to see. So I love that part when another, black brother can, take another black man up under his wing and show him the right way and help him develop, and point out his flaws, but help him work better to be a stronger man, and that's for himself and for the next generation. So I love that part of the movie. That was always one of my favorite movies growing up as a child, So I still watch it at times. So I'm glad we're talking about that movie because it's still relevant to this day.
And speaking of relevant to this day, before we move on from that, I would just say, can you summarize the difference between the mental health effect that it had on the young teenager in comparison to like the gentleman who was in his 30s at that time? Like, what's the different cycles of male? Because as women, we never will truly understand what you guys go through as men. So from that 12, 13-year-old to that maybe 35, 36-year-old brother, like, how did it affect, do you think it would affect their mental health differently, that the trauma that their family experienced?
The young brother, being that, a young male around 11, 12 years old, he's naturally looking for an older male role model to come into his life and show him the ropes, to teach him what he doesn't already know, to be that example. So he was more vulnerable. He was more in a critical state in his development, to help him, grow and groom himself into, a real righteous stand-up man. So that was really pretty much taken away from him at a young age. So he was vulnerable and left open to being attacked, being used and abused. The man older, depending on his upbringing and lifestyle, they could share similar stories. But at the same time, being older, you should be more responsible, more mature, and you should know that your impact on the youth, means something. So, it's all about self-accountability. So I feel that the older brother, although, his lifestyle was wrong, he could have had more self-esteem about himself to, lead the youth in a better direction. He could have opened up some type of center or facilities. He could have created some institutions. He could have had positive, productive meetings, and I do see that the organization skills that certain gang members and certain gang organizations have are needed. You know, I've learned a lot from gangsters myself. You know, I grew up having family in the penitentiary, friends in the penitentiary, so I always had a connection with people in the penitentiary, and I've learned a lot from those people too. And I've studied, you know, OGs like Larry Hoover and um, a lot of those guys, you know, that's locked up and doing a lot of time right now. Jeff Ford, you know, these guys have been in the penitentiary, you know, 2 decades, you know, solitary confinement, you know, still not breaking, you know, still have organizations out there that still, you know, producing, you know, the pros and the cons, the goods and the bads, you know. So I see the potential in the older men, you know, but I see a very harsh reality with younger people, because the older people, they live still in a generation that was different from the younger people. They still grew up where there was some level of respect, even if that was, you know, speaking to elderly people, even if that was, you know, wearing their pants up, even if that was, you know, being showed love in a different type of way. But you know, it's hard to compare, but it's a major difference in both realities and lifestyles, you know, and it's many similarities at the same time.
I really appreciate that, because like I said, a lot of times women, we have a lot of feedback on things as far as movies. So I'm really happy. And before Tiffany move on to her, Dr. Caesar move on to her question, I would ask if the brother Benjamin had any quick feedback remarks to add to the movie South Central before we move to the next part of the segment.
Okay. Again, the brother pretty much touched on most of the things that I would have said about South Central, because as he was speaking, I was thinking about the older brother that he was in the cell with, and I would have spoke on that, but he spoke about that already, which is very important. That brother wasn't quite an elder, but I like that they did at least put that part in the movie by him being older. You know, he had been through some things already. You know, we're talking about mental wellness and stuff, you know, and how it may have affected him mentally, you know, and maybe it was some elders or some older brothers that pulled his coat to some things that helped him mentally, you know, ground himself, you know, even though he was in prison, you know, and he was able to pass that on to the brother when he came in there. So by the time he left out of there, he had a mentality where he was able to go out into the world, you know, because of probably the time that they had. The other brother probably had a lot more time to do in prison. Okay, so and was able to influence some people, especially mainly his son, you know, a younger generation from him, you know. So a lot of times we might not be able to influence a whole community, but if we can just reach one, you know, the old saying, you know, each one teach one, you know, or reach one, you know, because you never know, that one may just reach one, or sometimes they may grow and be a good orator and be able to reach a whole community of people. And let me touch on one more thing before we move on, which I was kind of bringing it back around when I was speaking before, but I guess I was kind of babbling a little too much, taking too much time. And that's me being a musician too. My godfather, who was a musician, Chief Bay, you know, one thing that he taught us was about sound and how sound affects us. And we know how a lot of the music mentally, because we're talking about mental stuff. And I was going to bring it back around there, is that this music, you know, and the record companies, the recording companies, they understand the science of sound as well. You know, they've been in this business for a while, and the science of sound, you know, and then, you know, they putting the words in there, you know, it's having a big mental effect, especially on the younger generation, you know, because they're, you know, they gravitating to it, you know. So I won't babble on too much more about that, but just to
I
speak
really like that. And so I really appreciate, you know, that participation, because, you know, I feel like, you know, the Black family is in a state of emergency right now, and we need our leaders to help us to get through this tough time. It's hard for everybody, but it's always been a little bit harder for us of African descent. So Dr. Caesar, I'd like to turn it over to you at this time. I know you have a couple questions too.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate the engagement and how it's the movie South Central, right? Provide a great case study of Black men's mental health and wellness. And since we talked about Black men in the penitentiary and some of those challenges, I want to start off with that question, Mr. Carl Cooper. The question is, how do you help Black men in prison? Um, I'm thinking about your role of letter writing and sending books. And so can you talk about how do you feel Black consciousness help Black men in jail with their mental health?
Um, I've seen an increase in Black men in prison wanting conscious knowledge and information, conscious books, literature, wanting to know stories, wanting to know prayers, wanting to really connect. They're setting up altars, and putting a glass of water and, uh, really going all out. I mean, and I'm loving seeing that from our brothers. And I love African spirituality and African consciousness. So it gives me even more to do and more to organize in order to help a whole collectively, from the inside out. So I'm able to help by sending information, by sending books, sometimes sending a love offering, a little money, just being there for them. Pretty much growing a bond, spiritually with brothers who are wanting to grow, wanting to really rehabilitate themselves, not just go through the jail processes and go through these different classes, but they want something that they can really eat off of and something they can feel, turning them on to information such as fasting, connecting with them, meditating with them, just being there. And at the same time, holding them fully accountable as well, because it's not just about holding their hand or just helping them get through, but at the same time, it's about, real love, but tough love at the same time. But as long as we getting forward and they're really rehabilitating their minds, that's the mission. Because so many brothers, don't get consciousness or African spirituality inside the prison, inside the systems to help them really know what's going on with themselves. They're sent back out in the world. They may go through a halfway house or, back out, trying to get a job. But what about your spirit? What about your soul? What about your heart? Your morals. So it's been a great journey and a great process to be able to help them in that type of way, to send knowledge, to send information, to pick up the phone and accept the call. And they're talking about consciousness and orishas and offerings. And, that's like, wow, I'm really feeling that. So it's an amazing experience. And I'm looking forward to, helping more brothers and even from the outside, creating some type of systems that can, help brothers really rehabilitate in a more natural type of way, So it's all coming together. So I'm just loving the whole experience, and that's how I'm able to help them, and they're able to help me at the same time. Because there was a brother that brought up an Orisha to me the other day that that I was connected with the Orisha's son, but not that Orisha particularly. So I was like, okay, he came through. So I went and studied that Orisha and empowered myself even. So it's an exchange.
Thank you so much for that question. I do want to say, did anybody else want to comment on that before I go on to the next question?
You got it. You can go on to the next question. I don't have a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have one. Okay. Listening to Carl talking about, his influence in helping people in prison, I feel like I may have helped some people in prison indirectly because I have a son in the prison system right now. Okay. He was raised in the way of the Orisha. He was raised around music. He was raised around music. He was raised, and all the things, disciplines I was dealing with, martial arts. So he has spoke about how a lot of the people in there notice how he's different, because he's concentrating his efforts more on the disciplines that he was taught, that he was kind of straying away from out here. And it's ironic that, like, right before he went to prison, he was starting to get back into these disciplines with me more strongly. And he had his son with him, and so that would have influenced him greatly as well. So a lot of people do ask him a lot of questions, because when they go out in the yard to exercise, he's not like a lot of the other people. They go pumping iron, pumping up and all that kind of stuff. He's doing some other type of things and in his cell and other things. So, he's been more of a positive influence to a lot of the brothers. He's young, he's just in his 30s. And he's been a positive influence to a lot of the brothers being in that type of environment, because there's still a lot of violence and, craziness in terms of mentality. We're talking about mental wellness. So up in there, a lot of the mental wellness is going straight, it's whack, and when a lot of them look at him, they wonder and they ask him a lot of questions. He told me, how do he maintain the peace that he maintained, with all the stuff that's going on, and stay out of a lot of the craziness as much as he does. Of course, he can't stay all the way out of it, but as much as he does, from other people, type of things that's going on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, because you have brought up a really another point in the sense of, it's not only your mental wellness, Black men's mental wellness outside, right, in the world, but also in spaces of captivity. How do you maintain your sanity and your peace when you are incarcerated? And you have provided a wonderful example of your son being able to do that. And because he's been able to do that, he's been able to influence others. So thank you so much for sharing that wonderful example. So my next question for you, Carl, is concerning the Very Fresh Market. And we're talking about Black men's mental health and wellness, but not just that. The particular institution in which you are heading, the Very Fresh Market, as well as Envision the Berry. If you can just talk a little bit about your role at the Berry Fresh Market in New Iberia, Louisiana, and Envision the Berry. And then if you can go into a discussion on how the Berry Fresh Market has been a space of mental wellness and wellness overall for the community on Hopkins Street.
Okay. Well, I started working with Envision the Berry, which is a nonprofit organization, in 2015. And an elderly man who had actually owned a business on this same street here, Hopkins Street, that the Berry Fresh Market is now on, he led me to that organization because he observed my lifestyle over a couple years and noticed, and I changed my diet. I was drinking a lot of water. I was growing plants, and we had a great connection, him and I. This was his hometown, and I was a man just coming to visit this town. So he gave me a lot of history, and I took a love and took a passion to the town and the history, because, older Black men coming back here retiring, but wanting to see better. So they're investing, part of their retirement even into their own business to try to resurrect a entrepreneurial spirit, a good, healthy, conscious environment. So he led me to Envision the Berry, and I went to check it out, not really knowing too much about, working with organizations and people collectively, far as that goes on the organizational level. But I tried it out. I went by and checked out the community garden, which is Iberia Community Garden, a little further down on Hopkins Street. And I told him that Mr. Rudolph sent me there, and it seemed like an instant connection. I started familiarizing myself more with different ways of growing crops, because it was it's a community garden where they have a lot of plants in towers. You know, I was more familiar with plants being grown in the ground. So I familiarized myself with the methods and the different ways of planting, and I just started going there every week, volunteering. That's where my spirit led me. And I was actually living in another town, Abbeville, about 30 minutes away. So a couple times a week, I'd come back and forth just to put in work, volunteer in the community garden. And I did that for like 6 months, 6 months straight. And after 6 months, the opportunity for the market was brought about. And that project right there, we started right away. And I was asked to be the face of the business and to be the manager of the business with the option to buy the business eventually and the land. So I took that opportunity and actually moved to New Iberia and started putting more than 1 or 2 days a week, but 7 days a week into the building and the development of this business here. And Hopkins Street here, it's in a community where it was plagued with a lot of violence, a lot of crime, poverty, a lot of young Black men, getting murdered and killed. So to a lot of people, it was like, why would you want to open a business in that type of environment? Um, it's a great idea, but I think it should be somewhere else. You have, much more success. And it was just a lot of, that type of talk. So coming here and seeing the reality of it, I could see clearly what a lot of people were saying, but I knew that it was a purpose and a higher purpose for me being here. And I knew that was my purpose. So I came in and gave it my all. I was asked to join the organization, which I meditated on, and they had a class, and I went to the class and checked the class out. And I said, okay, I'll join the organization. And from there, I continued to put in my work and evolved and grew into the organization and became the president of the organization around 2017, the fall. And from there, I just kept working consistently. Opened the business of the Berry Fresh Market in 2017. We started working on the construction of the building, just getting the permits, and we did a lot of remodeling. We had to set up a fence in the back of the market in order to set up a garden to actually grow the food that's being brought into the market, now being sold. So that was a process. And after 7 years in the oil field and 2.5 years of being self-employed, just getting it, I'm almost at 10 years at that point in time. So I had to, catch my third win and put in even more time, work and effort to build, a grassroots project in the middle of the hood, the neighborhood. But I love the experience. I love the community that I'm in. Uh, my role has been an important role, being that I'm here at the Berry Fresh Market doing my work, pretty much every day. And it's a lot of responsibility, tending to a garden, growing food, um, planting plants, teaching people inside the market, the inventory, the relations with people who come through. Um, just serving the public, being the man and the king that I am, not just claiming it, but just really being a stand-up man, coming out here not being scared or fearful of anything that were to happen, and just taking care of business, showing my people also that we can have fresh fruits, fresh vegetables right here in the community, grown organically, naturally. You can walk back in the garden and take a look, and you can get your hands dirty and volunteer, or even pick up a job doing something around here. So it's creating a great environment. It's like a place of bliss right here in the community. And it's so much to offer, from produce to essential oils to African soaps to certain canned goods, hot sauces. And it's also like a co-op. So individuals who make items such as pepper jelly, for instance, we have different vendors who make products and bring their products and items in here to sell too. So it helps other entrepreneurs become, entrepreneurs in different places and expand their business and brand. It motivates people to start making things, to start being more creative, to start using their mind and intelligence to start business, legit business at that. the children come through. They have fun in the garden. It's a whole different experience for them. So it's more like a field trip for them. So it's good to see, you know, smiles on their faces. The elderly people, they come and hang out at times and often listen to old music, talk, give feedback. And some of them are open for constructive criticism as they give constructive criticism. So it's made a place for them to come in their community where they can come out and not be afraid to get out and enjoy, you know, and everything's progressing well. I'm meeting wonderful people. The supporters I've had have been great. You know, I'm thankful for them. And overall, you know, it's amazing. I'm learning and growing every day, learning more about plants and the medicinal properties behind plants. Um, you know, many people come in with different ailments, so and they want to go natural. So I'm, you know, finding different remedies for them. Some people with arthritis, some people may have diabetes issues, some people may have just a simple cold or flu type symptoms and rather, you know, herbs than, you know, chunking down all that medication. So I see it's sending a healthy, positive, conscious shift in the community.
Thank you so much. Tamara has a question. I truly appreciate that. And I just want to say, yes, it is I volunteer at the Very Fresh Market once a week. And I can say I see all those things. It's truly a beautiful place in New Iberia, Louisiana, that provides so much more when it comes to the healing of the Black community. So thank you so much, Carl, for sharing what it does and what it has done and how it was created. So Tamara, can you go ahead and go to your question, please?
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Dr. Caesar, my eyes, my heart was just singing, hearing about all those plans. You know, my journey as someone who has been on the breast cancer healing journey over the last 7 years, and that's like a lifestyle in that world. There are a lot of toxic things that are recommended in the cancer world, and you can get a lot of verbal abuse by the conventional side of people that will treat you like you're crazy if you want to take an integrative approach. And so I do appreciate the Dr. Sabis and the Dr. Jafunda Wrights and people in my life who have kept me supported and just mentorship. People in my life that have encouraged me to incorporate a more natural approach, because just the effect that it have on you mentally, all of that, like surgery and radiation, chemo, if you decide to go that route, you can see what it takes your body through. And I recently, like 2 weeks ago, my doctor has a 40-acre farm not too far from me, and she has some medicinal plants. And there were a lot that help with like female problems, because females get presented with a lot of different things, not to mention, the very toxic effects of like birth control. But everybody choose their journey, and some people choose that, but there are a lot of natural things in the garden that deals with like hot flashes or even allergies and things like that. And so I would say my first question to the brother is, for men who are dealing with certain things, I know really young, a lot of times when brothers are diagnosed as young men with like ADHD, they want to get them started on the medicine. Like, what are some natural plants that brothers can do, or that mothers can offer to like young men to deal with that energy? Of course, in addition to positive male mentorship, what are some plants that can be offered to the youth to kind of balance off their energy and anger and aggression and some of the things that they're struggling with in their state of confusion?
You're asking what herbs help with that?
Yes.
Okay. For instance, like lavender tea, peppermint tea, you have thyme. Some of these different herbs actually help go into your lungs and help cleanse your lungs. It helps, you improve your frequency. So you're not dealing with a lot of the ailments that you deal with, because a lot of people are down in Theraflu, They're down in Tylenol. They're down in aspirin, and they don't know actually that different herbal treatments will help with headaches. Like the natives. I have a book with Native Americans talking about the different herbs that they would use. Even for instance, pine, like a pine tree, they would take pine bark and use that to help get rid of headaches, get rid of different ailments. The list goes on and on and on about what herbs to actually take. And I'm very careful about what I recommend to people also, being that everybody's body is different, everybody's tolerance is different. So I tell the people, try certain herbs and, see what that does for you. Give it time to get in your system. So, try it for a while, and then see what happens. And that's usually how I do it. I recommend them certain herbs that I do have, that I do grow. And oftentimes it's more so for colds and flus and headaches and those type of symptoms there. There are other herbs and other roots, that sarsaparilla, you have burdock, that's good for cleansing the blood. And I recommend that those type of herbs and roots too, and also get those in at times. Sea moss, having sea moss, which is a very powerful nutrient based gel, in that form there, which has so many different minerals in it, high iron content. It increases the sex drive. It is a natural detox. So the herbs that I am familiar with and that I do take myself, I recommend as I continue to study other herbs and other methods. And like you said earlier, women deal with a lot of other different women issues, and problems. So a lady came yesterday actually, and she was asking about, Yanni Steen herbs, So it, had me, okay, let me go and, study more, and learn the different herbs that, help women uh, with those type of, issues. So I'm learning as I go, but what I do know, I share with them. But
Thank you so much.
it's a
I
process.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, definitely it's a process. And I love the fact that you talked about this idea of not only providing herbs, certain herbs to the community that help with ailments,
Right.
but also growing your own ailments. And I was just wondering if you can kind of talk about, I mean, growing your own herbs, if you can just just talk about the different herbs that you grow at the Berry Fresh Market. And then Miss Tamara Rushing has a question for you.
Okay. Currently I am growing thyme, lavender, uh, rosemary, peppermint, um, parsley, cilantro. Um I'm planting basil. What else do I have? And that's all I can think of right now. And herbs have been a challenge here, especially in South Louisiana, because not all herbs like all of that water. And lavender, for instance, it's been one of my toughest herbs to try to grow here. But what does do well is rosemary, it does well. Basil, it does well. I had an African blue basil last year that grew about 4 feet, and it just spread it out beautifully. It grew all the way up until the winter sometime. Um, what else? The deal, it grows real good here, real well.
So
And yeah, those are the herbs that I currently grow though.
thank you so much. I think that's important to know about the Very Fresh Market. Is that not only when you go to this space and you encounter these natural foods, that these foods are actually grown in the space where you are partaking these particular herbs and or food. And as Mr. Hampton said, as well as you, this ideal of that food is medicine, right? Food is medicine. It helps you with your mental health. So what you eat and what you ingest into your system, contributes to your mental well-being. So Miss Tamara, can you please ask your questions. And thank you for your patience.
Yeah, absolutely. So my wrap up question is, I was thinking back to like the prison industrial complex. I have seen examples where kind of jokingly people have said how women sometimes contribute by either trying to be too harsh with males and not respecting their own feelings and sensitivities, or being too soft with their boys that sometimes leads them down those roads. Like, I would like to hear from both brothers, like with me having a 3-year-old son and 11-year-old son, what advice would you give as a mother, co-parenting with another parent outside of the home, to, after divorce, to be able to be effective, where I'm not being too soft on them, but I'm not doing like overkill. Because once again, when you're not a male, you really don't understand the male psyche. So my question, just to reiterate, is what do you recommend as a male, as advice for mothers of particularly Black males of any age, to help them from our support perspective, and what are some pitfalls that moms sometimes get into with the boys that can lead them in a wrong direction, and the things that you would just advise that we do to strengthen our males from a young age?
I would say males from a young age, show them the tender love and care that a mother would show them. It's not nothing wrong with showing them the love and showering them with love, but also, having that, first and foremost, a healthy co-parenting relationship. Show them that, that they are important, and you do put them first by having that for them, because you know if it's a bad co-parenting situation, you could be a loving mother and he could be a caring father individually, but they still grow up with different voids. So just having that healthy co-parent first and foremost, that's a great start. Showering the children with love is an excellent start, but also giving them that tough love too when they need it. Not trying to put yourself in a man's shoe, or not, or anything like that, but also showing them tough love. Letting them, really grow and develop to be strong young men who are respectful, but you know tough in nature too, because the world is tough out there, very tough. And I come from a upbringing where I had, my parents co-parenting. My mother, she remarried and had a husband. So I did have a male role model there, who did step up to the plate in a lot of ways, that, taught me how to do household chores, and, went to my sports events, and, gave me certain advice as a man. But my mother also, she was a very strong stand-up woman herself. And I'll say, that upbringing that I had with her, it was rough and tough, I will say, but that's what saved me as a grown man, because it was certain tools that she was able to give me that I didn't even get from my mother or my father. I mean, from my stepfather or my father. Although they did, a great job in their own ways. They had their ups and downs and pros and cons, but ultimately overall, I can say, that they gave me the best that they did, from the best that they had from where they were at. And I respect that. But I also say, it's something about a mother and a mother's love too. Um, and I could say, okay, of course, from my father's angle and position, he taught me certain things that my mother could not teach me also. But once I became a teenager, I left my mother's house and went to my father's house, because I knew at that point in time, my mother, she did all that she can do, and I love her for that. But it's time for me to go and, be around my father, see what type of man he is, what type of advice he gives, because a mother and a father wouldn't give the same advice at all times, especially if they're not together. And I knew it would, my mother did all she could do. So by 15 years old, I was ready to get out of the house, and not just to go and party and do what I wanted to do, but I knew that I needed that male energy, that my mother could no longer give me. But I as I grew older, understood, what my mother was doing, while I was young and what she was instilling in me, because, that helped me conquer some serious battles and issues in the world, that, like I said, that I only got from her. So I'd say, have a good, healthy relationship, co-parenting relationship, love them as much as you can, and explain to them too, I am your mother and I'm raising you to be great men. But it's some things that your father will need to teach you. So that will help mold them and train them and have them looking forward to having that experience with a male, but also having that tender love and care from you that's unique and divine, straight from you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cooper. I appreciate it. I really enjoy your um, personal account and providing, that relationship and that experience that you have with your mother and how she instilled, with you a certain strength that you acknowledge, and also you attesting to the fact that, hey, my father was there as well, and I had to learn certain things from him, that my mother couldn't teach me. So I appreciate that. And I love the fact that you really emphasize this idea on a healthy co-parenting relationship, which is sometimes not always possible. But if you can, maintain a healthy co-parenting relationship with your significant other, it's better than nothing, right? When having both a male and a female role model in your life. So, Mr. Hampton, did you want to comment on that question that Ms. Tamara has provided?
Certainly, certainly. First, let me commend the brother Carl Cooper for what you're doing. Stay strong in it, because it's much needed. Even when the times get hard, stay in it, brother. Stay with it. I commend you on that. I commend y'all sisters, when you opened up this question and you was asking about this, because it brings to my mind how a lot of women will say, the saying, I'm the father and the mother, and I understand what they're saying, okay, but they need that male image, and that male image don't always have to be their biological father, because they need that male image, but they need a good male image, a good mentor, because sometimes you may have a no good daddy, or your daddy may be in prison. He may not, he may have learned his lesson, but he ain't there to, give you the hands on. He might could talk to you on the phone, but he can't give you the hands on, the day-to-day type of stuff. So a father image could be a coach. It could be a music teacher. It could be, all kind of, athletic coach, it could be all kind of people, but a good father image is what's needed. Now, again, going to my personal thing, when me and my children's mother separated, it was 4 boys that were the youngest. And at that time, I felt like they needed me more than they need her. Of course, they always need both parents, mother and father. But if she was going to separate from me, I felt like they needed me at that time most. So I had to fight for them in court. And it's hard for a man to win custody of children. I've even had some women say, you took her children from her? And it's like, wait a minute now. They my children too, but I understand the motherly thing, and like I say, they needed me most. The son that's in the prison system right now, he was over 18 at that time, but he was still living with her, Now, I'm not going to say she's the cause of him being in prison, because, he was making his own choices at that time, and I'm not going to even say so much as she was a bad mother. I would rather say that I wasn't as good of a father, rather than, criticize her and say, well, she was a bad mother. But none of the 4 boys went to jail. They all graduated high school, you know. They're not perfect, young men. They got some flaws, but they turned out pretty good, looking at where we was living, you know. And, we was in the hood, just like the brother Carl was saying. He opened this business up in the hood. And that's good, because all of the disciplines and businesses that I've been involved with, we always stayed in the hood. My martial arts teacher, Nganga Talona, Raymond Cooper, he stayed in the hood. Okay. I'm a former founding member of Muntu Dance Theater. Muntu has always stayed in the hood, you know. What else? And any other thing, being a drummer and all that, is mostly base have been in the hood. So I would say, Tamara, always keep us strong. You said for your 3-year-old and your 11-year-old, if I'm not mistaken, always keep a strong male image in your son's life. Now, if that's his biological father that you co-parenting with, then all well and good. But a lot of times mothers don't have that. And you're fortunate if you do. Just because you can't get along don't mean that, you both can't be good, strong influences on that child. But if you don't have a good father, and you can have more than one male image, just like you can have more than one female image, like I mentioned earlier. It could be a music teacher. It could be, an athletic coach, because us men, we're not all knowing. You know what I'm saying? They could pick up a few tips from some other males, that might influence their life. So I'll just leave it right there. Okay.
Thank you so much. And I truly appreciate that. And Mr. Hampton, you definitely just, kind of, you summed it up. Whenever there's a parent missing, whether that's a mother or a father, you know, a child is impacted, by it, but in that sense of someone being missing, there are always alternative ways that you can supplement, whether that's putting that child, in a space where they can see strong Black women figures, right? Or putting that child in a space where they have strong Black men representation. It's just about, as you stated, being conscious and strategic in the way that you're doing it. So thank you so much for that. And, since they have referred to your question, Ms. Tamara, would you like to comment to anything that they said concerning the role of Black men in children's lives?
Just much gratitude, but I would like to say, Dr. Caesar, you are an educator in elementary school. And so I was wondering if you had any questions, because I'm sure dealing with so many people's children, you probably could use a pointer or two about young Black males that you're teaching.
Thank you so much. I actually appreciate it. And I will have this question. I am a 5th grade teacher. And what I notice as a teacher is that right now, my male students are experiencing a lot of aggression right now. And I want to blame it on like puberty, but I'm not necessarily in the psych, right? Of like what is going on in a Black a Black male 5th grade mind. So when dealing with younger boys, how would you recommend me deal with some of the aggression that I experience in the class that also comes out as breakdowns, right? Sometimes it's not fighting, sometimes it's isolation, sometimes it's outbursts. So how would you recommend dealing with those particular issues?
Well, I was a individual also who had a lot of anger around that age, and my people didn't know where it stemmed from. I mean, I wouldn't just go berserk on people, but I had anger issues if you pushed me, and it didn't take too much for me to unleash it. But as I grew older, they didn't just go away. I had to learn and methods and incorporate different practices in my life to help me identify what's going on, where did it stem from, what's happening? How can I change my behavior before it, gets to a point where, it's uncontrollable? And incorporating, even simple methods like meditating, saying positive affirmations, just spending time, a little time to each individual who may be going through, some hard times, and just seeing where is it stemming from, what's wrong, without trying to get too personal into their personal lives or whatnot, but at the same time, just to get an idea of where it's coming from, so you can, do a great job at aiding them and knowing what's wrong or how to handle them. And that's why it's important to have Black teachers, women teachers who can identify with young Black men and know that, how to deal with them before you just send them to, a higher authority or whatnot to, discipline them, but knowing how to deal with your own people, your own community, your own children. The things that they're exposed to today is so much, they're dealing with so much on their mentality that they've advanced in ways where in one way, but still, not fully advanced and developed in other ways. So, they're dealing with a lot of issues, and I can just imagine. Also, you can send them over to the garden at any time, some after school care. I don't mind getting with them and meditating with them, or showing them, how to plant, or, how to, I have instruments here, guitars and, little drums, or, just getting them into different activities, showing some time and attention, but, just working together, just, to get them.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I would definitely do that this week.
I wanted to say to the brother Carl is that that's what I was talking about, because you're in a position, you have a public facility, you're in a position to be one of those mentors for, young men. Like I was saying, if women don't have a strong male, positive, sane, sensible male image for their male child, then you're in a position where they could bring that child to you. Right. And you have a lot of things that you can teach them. And, just them seeing a man doing like what you're doing, just seeing it, because seeing is a part of that mental wellness as well. All the senses. Like I say, my godfather taught me, what we hear is a part of it. What we see, what we feel. You got them out there in their garden, dealing with earth, dealing with dirt, all that. Oh man, it's so important. I know but I'm just trying to reiterate it as I don't consider myself an old man, but as an elder who've been around a little bit, I'm just, hopefully you seeing what I'm trying to do.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm pretty sure other people are doing it too, encouraging you, because you're in a public, position for, and you're a good brother, and a lot of people gonna need you. Don't be surprised if a lot of people don't call on you if you have a lot of children that are not your biological children. All right.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Hampton, I would like for you to talk about it too, because you are into music and you have an organization in which you also probably deal with, children. So just what do you have to say to that as well? And your role,
Well, I have over the years, I'm 66, soon to be 67 years old, and I have taught many children. I've taught from children to senior citizens. Okay, but we're speaking about the children. I've taught a lot of children. I've been in programs where I would go into the school, urban gateways, ART, here in Chicago, where I would go into the schools and do workshops with the kids, teach them how to make a little makeshift instrument, as much as I could in an hour and a half or 2 hours, teach them a little bit about music. And I would always interject some type of good character type of things, and relate music to, to different other things in life that they might encounter or that they would need, in terms to incorporate in their character. Definitely in the martial arts class, because, there was a little more discipline, in the classes where people would bring their kids to you, as opposed to me going to, someplace to the kids. People bring their kids to you. They want you to put the discipline on them physically, mentally, and spiritually, so I could get a little more in depth with them in terms of teaching acrobats, teaching, self-defense, all this is a part of the mental, very deep into the mental, and being involved with Muntu Dance Theater, like I said, I was one of the founding members, and I was young myself when I started, 18 years old with them. We was calling ourselves UHCC, Unifying Humanity Through Cultural Creativity. And it grew to the point that we changed the name to Muntu Dance Theater, But I was young myself. I didn't think of it so much then. But when I look back on it, I was very young myself. And there was brothers in there that was older than me, some less than 10 years, but still they had experienced a lot of things that I had experienced in terms of the culture. Then I was under the tutelage of an elder. At that time, I was dealing with the Hebrew Israelites, Baba Daniel, and he taught us, oh man, a lot of stuff. I mean, that's when I first became vegetarian. Before we even coined the word vegan, we just called it strict veg back then, but we was vegan back then, had co-op, and, he taught us all that stuff about, the health, and he was giving us a lot of the mental knowledge and wisdom and information, and, stuff like that influenced me greatly. So now I'm able to pass that on to, a younger generation. Right now, I don't have a facility. I'm not teaching publicly. I'll teach privately, but hopefully in the future, I can have another facility. Right now I deal with what we call an ile in the Yoruba tradition, a temple or a house, as we call it, in the Lukumi or the Isheshe, the traditional African Nigerian way. And I don't have a lot of godchildren, and that can be good because that's a big, big, big responsibility, and but we deal with it in that way also. So when adult people come to me and they have children, their family, I deal with it in that way in terms of incorporating spiritual knowledge and information, again, which can help deal with their mental well-being. And we're in the process of, with some of the Nigerian brothers that I study with, of doing some things in terms of dealing with some herbs that they deal with over there for mental health and for like drug addictions and stuff like that. One brother told me about this herbal concoction that they got over there, and they're trying to get it over here, that just somebody taking it one time, it just totally turns them off from alcohol or drugs, if they got a drug problem or alcohol. So I relate back to, our African heritage a lot because there's so much there. We have been dumbed down so much here, and I'm thankful for Dr. Sabi and Dick Gregory and brothers like that, because they were the influence on me, to help me to this point. And I put this out there publicly. I'm overweight. I'm out of shape for what I know. I know too much to go out like this. It's one of the Odus in the Orisha, one of the verses that says, "He who knows does not die like he who does not know." Okay, so I can't go out like this because I know
absolutely,
better.
absolutely. That is so deep. Yes, and I appreciate
like this last thing.
Okay,
I'm on a quest right now to lose 80 pounds, 40 pounds by the end of the summer, and the other 30 or 40 by the end of the year. So I'm putting it out there publicly. So now I gotta hold myself accountable. All right. Thank you all very much.
Absolutely. And just listening, it's so wonderful. 6 degrees of separation. I would like to start first. Baba Ben, as you were talking, I'm like, this is 6 degrees of separation. I was originally born and raised in Chicago, and Baba Daniel is one of our local heroes. My mentor, Mama Shabanduka, and my uncle, Baba Kuji, who's out in LA now, they were also under mentorship and learned carpentry. Yeah, that's my uncle. Yep. And it's just amazing to hear that growing, and connecting. And so I'm just so glad that it's not disconnecting, because one of the things that's gotten disconnected and like that Generation X group, people in their 30s, 40s, and maybe even 50, is the whole agriculture piece. And it's so important that we learn how to, if you're just doing a little tomato garden or something inside your home, that the nutrients is so important. And so I'm just so stoked and so excited about Brother Carl and his gardening, and just thinking about those simple things that can help people with their mental status, just to calm down, like touching the earth. And, you know, I appreciate that. And this has really turned out to be a gem. We always had a third co-host. And so it's been amazing for Male Month to have you to really have the time to tap in with us, Baba Ben. And Brother Carl, I've really just enjoyed learning from you and grasping the information on parenting. So thank you. That's my closing points.
Thank you so much. And just on a closing note, Mr. Carl Cooper Jr., if you can just tell us maybe one book that you recommend Black men to read, you know, that could help them with their mental health, as well as if you have a favorite song that just gets you in a positive vibing mood. You can share both or one or the other.
Okay. My favorite book would be Shifting Your Paradigm for Optimum Health and Longevity by Shaka Craig. And that book right there helped me get where I'm at. You know, years before even opening the market, I was preparing myself to open a market, preparing myself to change my diet, preparing myself to learn the history and of African people and of plants and different foods that came from Africa. So that book right there impacted my life very greatly. So once again, it's called Shifting Your Paradigm for Optimum Health and Longevity by Shaka Craig. And my favorite song would be Fela Kuti, Beast of No Nation. Yeah, Fela Kuti, he's a Nigerian artist. He was real popular back in the 70s and 80s. He's deceased now, but his music and his legacy still lives on. And he's one of my greatest inspirations too.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carl Cooper
I had
Jr.
an opportunity to grace the stage with Fela in Nigeria in '77 at Festec. You know, he was very heavy brother, and he influenced me musically as well.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Yes, Miss. Did you want to say something, Mr. Carl Cooper Jr.? Did you want to
Oh
say?
no, thank you for the invite on the show. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad this is my first live interview, period, you know. So uh I usually don't do too many lives. I mean, I'm always here in person, you know, I'm a phone call away, a text away, but I'm just now getting into the live world. You know, it was a whole lot of work to do before I really needed to be focused on the work. So I'm glad that this is a step forward into that world, and I'm able to communicate and network with you all. Great energy. Tamara, thank you. Dr. Ben, I'm used to saying Dr. Ben, Dr. Ben Yosef, if you're familiar with him. Yeah, but thank you for your input, your advice. You know, I'll surely take it with me, and hopefully we can continue to communicate and network and help uplift and build one another. And Dr. Caesar, uh, thank you. You're a great speaker, great teacher, great influencer, and I love what you do. And thank you for everything.
Thank you all. And I just want to say, I'm just throwing you all out positive ashe and just positivity, abundance, and just greatness in all that you all do. We had a wonderful session today. Carl Cooper Jr. from New Iberia has let us know about Envision the Berry, as well as the Berry Fresh Market, and even telling us more about his personal journey when it comes to Black men's wellness, mental health, and self-care. So I just want to let you all know we have just started. We have another wonderful guest next week, and we hope that you all stay tuned as we honor and support Black men's wellness, mental health, and self-care. Thank you, Ashe. See you next week.
Hey, indeed.
Yo, I shall. No doubt.
Hotel.